What's up YouTube? I'm doing another Witcher George video. Go check out his channel. Of course, the link is going to be in the description. He makes great just Witcher lore videos that I'm going to be reacting to, a little bit of them. This one is going to be a really interesting one because this is about drowners. The last one, the first video I ever did on this channel, reaction-wise, was about Sylvans, and now we're doing drowners, and I feel like drowners are like quintessential Witcher 3. Maybe not quintessential, like they're not very iconic, I guess. They're more like a meme monster or something. They're kind of like Skyrim's mud crabs or Fallout's rad roaches or something like that. Like everyone from everyone from like the highest noble to the lowliest of peasants, you know, references how drowners are just like a pest, basically. The irony of that, though, is if you've played The Witcher 3 on Death March, especially if they're your same level, or if you're playing with enemy upscaling on, they're like some of the most dangerous monsters, like genuinely, that and wolf packs. Just because they hurt. They hurt when you have low armor, and the way they attack, they can kind of synchronize and like land multiple hits on you, like stack hits on you. And they do a backstep a lot, which, you know, you can miss a rend-on or whatever. So, I don't know, it's kind of ironic because all throughout the game, people just act like they're just drowners, you know? And wherever there's a body of water, there's a high chance of a pack of drowners. So, drowners they're classified as necrophages, if I remember right. So yeah, they are. They're necrophages, kind of like water hags and stuff like that. I always liked necrophages a lot. A lot of them are treated like just like pests or something like that, like raccoons of the Witcher monster universe. I don't know. They tend to like congregate, kind of like vultures around, you know, death. You find a lot of them near graveyards and stuff like that, like with ghouls and grave hags and stuff. But yeah, drowners are just pretty much synonymous with water, and they're synonymous with just being everywhere throughout the game. So I don't know. I don't know the lore of the books, if they're even in the books, if they're as prevalent in the books. But yeah, I guess I'm about to find out. So this is the Witcher George's What Are Drowners? Let's check it out.
Drowners. They are one of the more well-known monsters in The Witcher, and belong to the family of monsters known as necrophages, which effectively are scavengers that eat the dead bodies of all and relatively easy prey. Although they do appear creepy and a little unsettling, I wouldn't attribute their fame necessarily to this, and I'd add that unlike monsters such as Leshens, fiends, or even higher vampires, they're not exactly intimidating or physically impressive. I'd rather attribute that—
Yeah, see, even The Witcher George says that, but I'm telling you, man, if you play on Death March, they're some of the most dangerous enemies, just because they come in packs and they stack hits, like I already said. You can get like basically one tap by a pack of drowners if they're, you know, enemy upscaling Death March, and if you're not rocking like the Ursine armor, I think it's the bear armor, the heavy armor or whatever. Like if you're going like medium armor, like the griffin armor and stuff, they hurt, man. They really do hurt.
Fame to the fact that they are present in every Witcher game.
Sorry that I keep pausing, but there's been so many times that like I've been high level and I just did some crazy quest, and then I just get like 2-tapped randomly by a pack of drowners. It's like a pretty crappy feeling, honestly, but
in pretty much every zone, right from The Witcher 1 2 to The Witcher 3. I'll also add that pretty much all the information—
Okay, so they're in all the games. I didn't know that because again, if you watch my first video, I never played the first game, I never played the second game, so they're in the first 2 games. So I think I knew that, though. I knew they were in the first game at least, but
I'll be sharing on these monsters today is from the games and books specifically made for the game lore, as Geralt doesn't encounter one in the actual Witcher books.
Oh, okay.
The only mentions of them pretty much tell us nothing, just stuff like how much Witchers used to charge for taking on contracts for them, and just sort of being referenced as a monster that exists.
So in the books, they're just referenced. That's actually pretty surprising. I guess CD Projekt, when they made the game, it just kind of became like a meme kind of thing. Kind of like mud crabs, you know? Yeah, they are pretty iconic in the games, I'd say. I mean, yeah, they're just kind of like a running joke, I guess. Like, oh, better be careful fishing. You know, there's drowners out there kind of thing. Okay. So they're just literally mentioned in the books. It's pretty crazy.
A drowner has been described on many occasions to resemble a corpse dragged from the bottom of a pond or other filthy body of water. I'm sure this is in part because of the fact these creatures resemble humans and spend the majority of their time in marshland or underwater, but I imagine it's also because of their flushed, blue, slime-covered, hairless bodies, dead bulging fish-like eyes, and, well, rancid smell. When you look at them from a distance, it makes sense why so many folktales state they are just drowned humans risen from the dead.
Right.
On closer inspection, you'll find their entire anatomy is very different to that of a human. For example, their skin, although pale and blue, is in fact scaly to the touch. They also have gills, dorsal fins, webbed feet and hands with a set of claws on each. These visual differences alone indicate they're an entirely different species to human. Something worth noting is that there appears to be different types of drowner in The Witcher 3.
Yeah, and from what I remember, I can't remember like the bestiary or bestiary or whatever, where you read about the monsters. I think they are a conjunction monster or whatever when the spheres crossed or whatever it is in the lore. So they're not like a natural phenomena, but they kind of do play the part of like probably whatever world they came from or whatever. They probably played the part of kind of like crabs or something on like scavengers, you know, on steroids or something. I don't know. And yeah, there is different ones, but they're all pretty much the same. There's like, I don't know. I think they're called, he's going to say it anyway, but I think they're called drowned dead or something like that. I don't know.
Many of these types look very similar, except for eye and skin differences. Some also have hair on their heads, but the rest of their body remains hairless. However, one type looks entirely different.
Yeah, the fins.
Described as fins and tentacles.
Those guys are strong too. They're higher level.
Between the drowners, at least
if I remember right,
have not been explicitly stated. Obviously, except for Drowned Dead and Mucknixer. Drowned Dead.
Mucknixers. Mucknixers?
Mucknixer just being differently colored Drowned Dead. I don't believe Drowned Dead or Mucknixers are all that different from a normal drowner.
Yeah, they're really not. They're probably just like subspecies or something within themselves.
Possessing different colors and being stronger, but what I'm saying is the differences between the different types of basic drowner that appear visually different to each other have not been addressed in the lore. I imagine these differences have occurred as the various drowner populations have adapted to their environments. For example, some live in lakes, some live in marshes, and...
Right. Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
The breed of drowner mentioned in the Witcher bestiary, and although there are specific legends relating to them that I'll get into soon, they do appear to just be another type of drowner. Perhaps they're supposed to be one of the drowners shown in the game, but we haven't really been told, so we don't know. I know a lot of fans believe including Vodniks in the Witcher bestiary may have just been a mistake on CD Projekt Red's part, and they were actually referring to another monster known as a Vodginoi, which I hope I'm saying correctly, and this is a monster based on an actual real-world monster. However, a Vodginoi is not a drowner. They are water-dwelling creatures, but they are an intelligent race that live in cities of the Great Sea.
Okay.
Similar to Nereids and Mer people. To summarize,
right.
Drowners and their various forms, Drowned Dead, Mucknixers, and I guess Vodniks are all pretty much the same, except for the different physical attributes.
Yeah, they look different. That's about it.
In a very similar way, and pretty much all look the same for the most part. Except the guy with fins in his face. I guess he just likes water the most. Moving on, let's get into where this monster came from. So, is it pre or post conjunction, and what effect...
Oh, pre or post conjunction, that's what it's called, that's right.
Are post-conjunction monsters.
Post-conjunction, okay.
They arrived in the world of The Witcher, or the world of the Enshe, via the conjunction of the spheres. Long story short, the conjunction of the spheres was a cataclysmic-like event that caused various worlds to align and deposit samples of the inhabitants of these various worlds onto each other. This is why...
Yeah, I never really learned that much about like the conjunction of spheres, but I think vampires are the same as well, right? Like a lot of the monsters in this universe are from other worlds or whatever, but then there's some that were like natural. I can't even name some of the ones that were there off the top of my head, but yeah, like maybe griffins were. I don't remember.
The world of The Witcher has so much variety in the living beings found there.
Right.
This is how drowners ended up in the world of the Enshe, the world where the majority of the...
It's kind of weird, too, because it seems like drowners could maybe naturally fit within the universe, but at the same time, not really, because they're like, I don't know, humanoid creepish. They're humanoid, like, creepy things, so maybe not, I don't know.
And books take place. Nothing is known about their previous world, but I like to personally imagine it's sort of like Dagobah from Star Wars.
Yeah, it's probably aquatic, like swamps.
With lots of little wildlife for them to hunt.
Right.
Since drowners have entered the world of The Witcher, they have become effectively a public menace. Of course, the majority of monsters in The Witcher are predators of humans and non-humans alike, but what makes drowners so infamous and well known for the peoples of the Northern Kingdoms and Nilfgaard is simply how many of them there are.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
Pretty much every location you go in the games, you can somehow find yourself
sewers, rivers, lakes, oceans.
In areas like the Painted World, but what I mean is they're in Skellige, Velen, Tucson, in the sewers at Oxenfurt and Novigrad, and just around most coastlines or marshes in these areas. And that's...
Yeah, and in the Hearts of Stone, they had like the ones down there before you fight the Toad Prince or whatever. There was like a symbiotic relationship or whatever between the drowners down in the sewers and the Toad Prince.
Witcher 1 and 2. Drowners are also very rarely found alone, and usually exist in packs, which just adds
in packs
quantity of them. For this reason, I'd almost want to argue that drowners have been one of the most influential monsters to the peoples of The Witcher. I imagine they would have been present during most human settlements' early days and presented an annoying problem. I also get the impression that the word drowner is known by most, be that a Scoia'tael warrior, a noble, or peasant, whereas a word like chort, fiend, or leshen is probably just a bit less well known, which I think you can sort of see when Geralt says a monster's name for a contract. I doubt many peasants or other inhabitants would be like, oh, I don't know what a drowner is.
Yeah.
I do realize a lot of what I'm saying here is based on assumption, but I'm pretty sure most of you would...
I mean, not really. It's not really based on assumption because from what I remember all throughout The Witcher 3, there's a lot of remarks just from random people and everything else around the world, even from like nobles and stuff about drowners or whatever. So I don't think it's really an assumption. At least that's what I think they were trying to go for in The Witcher 3. Like pretty much everyone knows about drowners. And you pretty much in the beginning of the game or whatever, when you show up in White Orchard, if you do the fire starter quest, when you're tracking down the dude who burned down the dwarf blacksmith's hut or whatever, he got attacked by drowners, I think, if I remember right. And then you follow his blood trail. So yeah, you learn about them super easy, even if you don't run into them with Vesemir right away, which you can as well, but...
agree from reading the books and playing the games that a lot of peasants simply aren't educated enough to know the full Witcher bestiary. However, most will know of drowners, so I'd say their effect on the world has been pretty substantial.
Yeah, and the thing also is, everyone pretty much knows them because humans tend to congregate towards bodies of water, you know, and a lot of villages and stuff like that tend to be on like riverbanks and stuff like that. And it stays true for a lot of the maps in this game as well. I mean, there's some cities and stuff that are inland, but you know what I mean. And they're always like, I don't know, with just the game format of like The Witcher. I heard I can't remember where I read this or heard this somewhere, where there's always going to be like a suspension of disbelief in the games versus the books or whatever, because even in the games, the Witchers are supposed to be like a dying kind. Like they're not putting them through the Trial of Grasses anymore at Kaer Morhen. So there's this element of like Witchers are a dying thing because there's not as much monsters anymore. But in the game, there's like drowners everywhere. There's freaking monsters everywhere. It's like this suspension of disbelief. It really is. In the books, I've never read the books again, but I feel like in the books, monsters are probably rare. But just because the format of, you know, a video game, how boring would it be if there was like, if monsters were rare, right? There would be no gameplay. So... I mean, yeah. The whole reason I'm ranting about this is because drowners seem to be kind of like the stable, and they kind of reinforce this aspect of like, yeah, they're just common vermin, you know, when like people are fishing or washing their clothes or whatever. And it also kind of, it just kind of highlights how people don't stray very far from their villages, you know. They stay within the confines of safety in this world. And even with that, staying in the confines of safety, pretty much everyone knows what a drowner is. So
the main legend surrounding drowners, drowned dead, mucknixes, and vodniks is that they are drowned people risen from the dead.
Right. But it's not true.
Too far from the shore. These legends are of course false, but still widely believed by many. There are also some weird specifics about some of the legends, like how vodniks are specifically drunken peasants who fall into swamps and die, but as I said, this isn't true. Drowners, drowned dead, mucknixes, and vodniks are their own monster. The way in which these monsters attack is best described in these 3 words. Fast, fast, and fast.
Oh, dang.
Also in large annoying packs.
Yeah.
Drowners are pack animals, so like to attack more dangerous individuals, like say a witcher, in large numbers.
Yeah, a lot of like the ones too in the swamps, they have those gas deposits or whatever. I mean, I think everyone can attest to killing yourself with Igni. Accidentally igniting one of those gas deposits and killing yourself. I've done it.
They also like to surprise you by rising from the depths, getting in short, quick attacks, and whenever they have the opportunity, go for back attacks. Maybe while you're trying to deal with his friends. I'd like to say my professional Witcher recommendation for how to deal with these monsters is to oil up, be careful, and slowly dismantle their numbers. But honestly, I'd recommend just quenning up and igniting them down. Maybe try and get a few back attacks of your own on them while they're stunned.
Yeah, they're weak to Igni, so if you're doing like a Griffin Sign build hybrid or something, which is a really fun build, yeah, you could just melt them with Igni, or if you have the alternate Fire Stream, you could even knock them down with Ard. They're not too bad to deal with, but yeah, they're one of the hardest because like they come in packs and they stack attacks. So if multiple ones are synchronized on top of each other, you can die like really fast. And it's just kind of like it's kind of part of the gameplay. That's why like wolf packs are really hard too. And there's some elements of it you can't really prevent. Like even if you're dodging or rolling or whatever, if the timing's off, you're pretty much going to get hit no matter what. It's kind of like a limitation of the gameplay. So a lot of like single target enemies, you can just spam dodge and then attack, maybe get 2 attacks and then spam dodge again. But on Drowner packs, sometimes it prevents you from doing that just because of the synchronization between each other. That's why they're so hard on Death March.
You could also go for the Ard tactic, which involves using Ard and getting some quick finishes in. Bear in mind this only applies if you're fighting them on land, as when they're in the water, they are an entirely different beast. In the case of water warfare, just pull out your handy crossbow, defy the laws of physics, and rain hellfire on these guys.
Yeah, the meme with the crossbow. It's like the worst weapon. Well, crossbow's actually not that bad in The Witcher 3. It serves its purpose. I feel like people don't give it enough credit. I've killed a lot of enemies with a killing shot with the crossbow, so especially when you have bleeding and poisoning proc. But yeah, it's like the meme, right? When you're underwater, it turns into a sniper.
And do it quickly, as they will reach you with that pretty impressive speed, stun you, and run away. To be honest, these guys aren't all that hard to kill in the water, but can be dangerous if you're already on low breath, as if they manage to hit you, you will lose a chunk of it, so maybe drink some killer whale before facing them. Drowners are also known to cohabit with water hags, so of course fighting a pack of drowners and a water hag is a bit of a different story. I generally just go for the same tactic, except I focus the hag and avoid the mud she throws. Or you could just kill the drowners, then the hag, it's honestly up to you. I remember finding a group of drowners and foglets, so I imagine they also cohabit. Man. The tactic is...
Foglets are the worst. Oh my gosh. Foglets are very dangerous. I'm not going to get into it because I'm sure he has a lore video on foglets, but man, foglets are very deadly.
Pretty much the same as the hags, just be mindful that a foglet has the ability to create decoys and turn into smoke. Another way in which drowners are known to attack is stealthily, so pulling unsuspecting fishermen from piers or boats, literally drowning them and then maybe clawing them under the water. Interestingly, sometimes drowners save the bodies of their victims underwater to properly season them before eating. The reason I find this interesting is drowners are supposed to be pretty unintelligent, mainly acting on instinct, but clearly saving food and aiming for the best experience when eating shows us that drowners...
Did you say they season them? Like, in what way? Because crocodiles and alligators do that, don't they? They cache food, and big cats do that as well. I think even like some bears do that, because crocodiles will just leave you in the water, so basically your skin softens up so they can just rip into you easier. Or to save you for later or whatever. Sounds like drowners do that too, but season them? Okay. They season you, I guess.
I'll also quickly add that drowners don't just eat people, they eat almost anything they can, and this includes the bodies of the dead and fish, etc. Basically, whatever they can eat, they will probably give it a go. To finish off this section on drowners, here's a small note in regards to breeding. Yet again,
Bit of a side note too, there's the, right when you show up in Velen, there's the one dude, I forgot his name, but he's one of the earliest quests that show you that your choices matter in this game, which I always thought was cool, which is tied to the drowners. He's the dude, man, I can't remember his name, but he's tied up on the side of a river or whatever, and he's like, don't leave me to the drowners or whatever, and if you let him go, you find him later on, and he's basically like a, everyday cutthroat bandit, and he killed like a whole village or whatever. So, I don't know, just a little side rant that, yeah, you can experience, like, it's kind of cool how it's tied in with that guy not wanting to get killed by the drowners, and it's one of the few examples early on of choices in this game, and choices actually mattering in this game. Choices mattering in an RPG. I know it's kind of crazy today, but
really know how drowners reproduce. I've been presented with theories like all drowners are male and produce with water hags, as
they lay eggs.
Sometimes cohabit. I've also been told they mate with each other, and I've heard somewhere they potentially reproduce asexually. If I had to say my opinion, I imagine they just reproduce with other drowners. I feel like they're the sort of animal that lay eggs and then fertilize them, sort of like fish.
I just said that,
maybe the eggs are fertilized inside, then they are laid out, sort of like some sharks. I just don't imagine a drowner would give birth in the same way as a human or non-human. They do have nests in the Witcher games, but it's not made apparent whether they breed in these nests or just have made their home there. I also feel like there are far too many lone packs of drowners for every one of them to have come from a water hag, but perhaps they do, and CD Projekt Red just didn't represent this with this sort of water hag drowner population. So pretty much we don't know if drowners have genders or how they reproduce, although I'd say it's not exactly a necessary detail for us to know, although it would be nice. I will say it is quite fun to theorize about though, as well.
Yeah, can you imagine how bad they smell? Like water hags and just necrophages in general. I don't know. Maybe they don't, but I just have a feeling they do.
That we don't know in The Witcher is quite fun to theorize about.
Yeah.
In the previous segment, I briefly touched upon the nests drowners can sometimes be found living in. However, drowners are not only found in nests and can be seen to habitate a variety of locations in The Witcher. Although each of these locations does have something in common, water. For example, drowners can be found in the sea, on coastlines, in caves, in lakes, in swamps, and in sewers. The cave and sewer, and I suppose sort of swamp drowners, are particularly interesting, as normally the areas in these caves, sewers, and swamps the drowners make their homes in are poisonous to the normal inhabitants of the Witcher world, or in the swamp's case, just close to a lot of poisonous clouds and stuff. Oh, and this includes witches, who are normally more resilient to poisons, as I'm sure most of you will know. This shows just how resistant to these forces drowners are, the fact that they can not only pass through this deadly gas without injury, but also exist and live in it. I think a common assumption is that drowners like to live in their own filth. From my point of view, although they do this, they also live in areas that I would say are pretty clean, like the Skelligan Sea or a lake in Tucson. So, most likely, drowners don't really have a preference either way. They'd be just as happy living in a crystal clear lake as a sewer in Oxenfurt.
Yeah, probably just food. Just like most animals, right? Like, they're not really picky in that regard as long as there's a food supply, so...
Speaking of the sewers in Oxenfurt, I find it interesting that in the Hearts of Stone expansion for The Witcher 3, the local drowner populace had learned to cohabit with the Toad Prince who had made his home in the sewers. In fact, we know drowners cohabit with other monsters, such as water hags and foglets, and actively work together with them, which I think sort of shows yet again that they have some level of intelligence. The fact they work together as a pack and can recognize if something poses as a threat, benefit, or meal to them is pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's true. I never really thought about that, but that is true. They do. Yeah, they're not mindless killing machines, you know. I don't know. I never even really thought about water hags being like related to them. I don't know why. They look similar in a lot of ways, their skin color and stuff, but I always thought they were just completely separate, but I think they are, but I'm just saying I never really thought that before. He said something about some people thought water hags were like they gave birth to drowners. I never even thought about that.
This brings me to the end of today's Witcher lore video, and I hope you've all enjoyed. I feel like a video on drowners has been a long time coming, so I'm glad to have finally covered this subject today and either told you guys something new about this monster, or maybe just refreshed your memory of it. As always, if you want to support me in this sort of content, I'd appreciate a like.
Yeah, and that was The Witcher George's What Are Drowners? Honestly, that was a really good video. Drowners, they are like they're one of the most fascinating just because of how abundant they are, you know? And they kind of are like a meme. I think I didn't really learn anything crazy about drowners in this video, but it was still a really good video. They are basically just kind of like I don't even know, the raccoons, the cockroaches, the vermins of the universe. And the most interesting thing from this video is just learning like how in the books they're basically just mentioned in the books. They're not even like a big deal in the books. They're just kind of a thing in the game. So I'm sure they kind of serve the same purpose in the first two games. Like they're just kind of like lowly, you know, cannon fodder kind of enemy type. That's what as intended, I guess, you know, meme. I wonder if there's as much memes thrown at him in the first two games, but I think drowners would be terrifying in real life. I would hate, like, imagine swimming and then getting dragged underwater by a drowner. I'd be staying away from the waters if I was in the Witcher universe. That was a really good video. I had a lot of fun watching it, and I will see you guys in the next one. Most likely another Witcher George video. I will be doing other video game content reaction stuff with just games I love. That's the only criteria. If it's games like I know, you know, like lore or whatever that I've played that I can actually react to. If you like this video, consider subscribing, leaving a comment or whatever. I appreciate it. I'll see you guys in the next one. I'll stop ranting, okay? Peace.